So hello, this is Ehsan. In this video, we are going to talk about integer overflow. What I mean by integer overflow is basically uh, in a computer when we want to represent a certain integer value, we just cannot represent any integer value like an infinite number. I don't know, gigatrillion integer. So 1 billion 2045. That's a huge number. So I don't even know how many numbers do you need to actually represent that number, but it's a huge number. So because the computer has a finite amount of memory, in the memory, integers when they're represented has some certain limitations. So if we go beyond that limitation, in that case, what happens is something called a wraparound effect. So if we go past the positive end of the integer, it wraps around to the negative end of the integer. So that is the hypothesis, and in this video I'm going to show you that exact case. So what we do is basically we start by the integer 1 and we save the value in the variable x. For better name, we can say value x, and then what we do is we gradually increment the value of 1 by two times. So in the first case it will be 1, the second case it will be 2, then it will be 4, then it will be 8, and at one point it will certainly go past the maximum value that the computer allows to be saved as an integer. So and then what will happen is basically it will give the negative most value as the result, and then it will either start to give weird numbers which are not really correct, because it was supposed to give 2 times the previous value, but we'll see that it wraps around to the negative most number. So the initial value is 1, we say print f and then we do, let's say, print the integer, put an enter or a new line, and replace integer placeholder with the value. And then what we do is we do something called an infinite loop, which says while 1, here 1 stands for true, which means that while a certain condition is true, since it is 1, it is always true. So while true, or we can say like true, but let's say 1. So while it is 1, what we do is basically multiply the previous value of x by 2, save the value in the variable x again, so kind of overwriting x after multiplying it by 2, and then print the value. I'm sorry, it should not be x, it should be value, because we use the variable value. So we do printf, and then we can say if I is less than, say for example 0, we will break out of this loop. So it will always run. It will run and multiply 2 with the previous value of value, and overwrite the value with the previous multiplied version of value, and print the value. And if we see that the value of value is actually no longer positive, in that case it has reached the overflow limit, and we are going to break out of this while loop. So let's run this. Control R, and you see that initially it starts with 1, then it goes to 2. So basically it starts with 1, it prints 1, then it enters the infinite loop, because it will be always true, because we say while true, meaning while it is always true, multiply the value with 2 and overwrite the value with the new value. So in our case it was 1, 1 into 2 is 2, then the value is no longer 1 but it is 2. Then we print the value 2 and then we check if the value is less than 0. It is not, because it is 2, which is greater than 0. So we don't break, we go again. And since this condition is 1, so it is always true, we enter and we see that the value is now 2 into 2, 4. We overwrite the value from 2 to 4 and we print 4 and then we go on. And at one point it should always be positive because we are just multiplying by 2. However, if we check, we see that at one point when this huge number tries to get multiplied by 2, it actually reaches the limit of the positive part of the integer and it wraps around to the most negative number. So this is called integer overflow. So you just cannot always add things to an integer and expect that it will behave properly, because you can always, in worst case condition, if not careful, overflow the limits of your integer and you can wrap around and your computer program might work, but it will not work the way you actually planned. So I hope you understand this concept of overflow and it helps you. Thanks.